So in 2025, traditional Hollywood actually had like its best year in a decade.
Oh, yeah. I mean, movies were making billions.
Right. Theaters were packed to the brim,
Yeah.
and studio executives were, finally breathing a sigh of relief.
Yeah, they thought they were back.
They really did. And this is the crazy part. The biggest traditional studio of them all didn't get to, like, pop champagne at the end of the year.
No, they absolutely didn't.
Instead, they got swallowed whole by a company that, started out mailing DVDs in red envelopes.
It's wild to think about.
It really is. So today we're doing a deep dive into how a single corporate boardroom meeting on December 5, 2025, just completely rewrote the rules of the entertainment industry.
It's such a paradox.
Yeah.
And it really forces us to rethink, pretty much everything we know about media.
Yeah.
To really understand the future of entertainment, we have to look at this collision, this crash between century-old storytelling and Silicon Valley algorithms.
Right, right.
Because this isn't just a business merger. It is a fundamental shift in human behavior.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand how we got here, we really have to start by looking at that paradox you mentioned.
Yeah, the numbers from that year.
Exactly. Like, we have this financial breakdown from the Struthi. And if you were just, glancing at the data from 2025, you'd assume legacy studios were entering this massive new golden age.
Oh, sure. The
Yeah.
box office numbers were just massive.
Huge. You look at China's Naza, too. That grossed nearly $2 billion globally.
Which is astronomical.
Right. And then U.S. franchise IP was just printing money. Like, Disney had Lilo and Stitch crossing $1.04 billion.
Wow.
And Zootopia 2 pulled in $918 million. And Universal's Jurassic World, Rebirth, that hit $869 million.
Yeah, just hit after hit.
And Warner Bros. Themselves had massive hits, right? They had a Minecraft movie at $958 million and Superman bringing in $617 million.
Right. And so on paper, those look like absolute triumphs.
Yeah, they sound like it.
The gross revenues for the theatrical event film were phenomenal that year.
Mm-hmm.
But those numbers actually mask a very fragile underlying reality for legacy media.
Really?
Yeah. And that's why, despite those massive theatrical wins, Netflix was able to acquire Warner Bros.
Wow.
Yeah, they bought them for an $82.7 billion enterprise value.
See, that math it feels completely backward to me.
I know.
How does a company that's watching its rivals make, billion-dollar movies just step in and buy one of those rivals outright?
Well, it comes down to the structure of the deal.
Right. Let's clarify the terms of that deal, actually, because the financial reports state Netflix shares were valued at $27.75 each, and it says with a collar in the deal, and that $82.7 billion enterprise value.
Yeah.
So for those of us who don't spend our mornings reading, Wall Street Journal term sheets, an enterprise value means they aren't just buying the stock, right?
Correct.
They are swallowing all of Warner Bros.' debt too, right?
That is a highly accurate way to frame it, yes.
Yeah. Okay. And then the collar thing, that's basically a safety net, right? Like setting a minimum and maximum price for the stock to protect both sides from a sudden market crash before the ink dries.
Yeah, exactly. The collar ensures the deal doesn't just fall apart if tech stocks take a sudden hit.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
And your point about the debt, that is the crucial key to this entire acquisition. You really have to look at the mechanical difference between legacy media's mixed model and Netflix's pure play model.
Okay, mixed model versus pure play.
Right. So legacy studios like Disney or the pre-merger Warner Bros., they operate a mixed model. Their revenue comes from a very, very complicated web.
Like splitting ticket sales and stuff?
Exactly. They split box office ticket sales with theaters. So they're keeping roughly half domestically and actually even less internationally.
Oh, wow. I don't realize it was that much less international.
Oh, yeah. And then they also rely on legacy cable bundles, which are, rapidly shrinking.
Right. Everyone's cutting the cord.
They operate physical theme parks, they sell physical merchandise, and to fund all these moving, highly volatile parts, they carry massive amounts of corporate debt.
I see. So when Superman makes $617 million, this studio isn't just like putting $617 million in the bank.
Not at all.
They have to pay the theater chains. They're paying off hundreds of millions in global marketing campaigns.
Yeah.
They're covering production budgets. And most importantly, I guess, they are servicing the interest on that mountain of corporate debt you mentioned.
Precisely. The friction in their profit model is just immense. It costs them a tremendous amount of money just to keep the lights on across all those different divisions.
Right. So it's not all profit.
Exactly. Now, compare that to Netflix's pure play model.
Yeah.
They operate one primary platform.
Just the app.
Just the app. Their revenue comes from subscriptions and advertising tiers.
Hmm.
They don't worry about cable affiliates or, whether a hurricane is going to close a theme park in Florida.
Yeah, they don't have those physical liabilities.
Right. Their entire financial reality is dictated by streaming unit economics, primarily ARPU, which is average revenue per user,
Yeah.
and churn.
Churn being the rate at which people cancel.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because the pure play model is so streamlined, their free cash flow is highly predictable. And that predictability gives them the leverage to take on an $82.7 billion acquisition.
Okay, I see the difference in the balance sheets, but I have to push back a little on the idea that a billion-dollar box office hit is just a high-friction headache.
Okay, how so?
Well, for a company like Disney, isn't that box office hit basically a loss leader? Or like a giant marketing flyer?
Oh, I see what you
Like,
have.
if they spend $250 million making a movie and they only break even at the box office, they don't panic.
Yeah.
Because that movie just convinced a family of four to spend $3,000 at a theme park and buy a bunch of plastic toys.
Right, right. And that strategy works perfectly if you have the physical infrastructure to monetize it. For the mixed model studios, the movie is basically the top of a very long funnel. But Netflix doesn't have a theme park to fall back on.
Oh, right. They just have the screen.
Exactly. For them, the screen itself has to be the entire ecosystem. The content isn't an advertisement for a toy. The content is the final product.
Yeah, that's a huge difference.
Which really brings us to the core question here. How did a tech company ensure that its screen became so valuable that it could buy the studio that made The Wizard of Oz?
Right, because if your entire business model relies on keeping churn as close to zero as possible, you have to make sure people never look away from the screen.
Exactly.
And according to the academic study we pulled from the International Journal of Research and Scientific Innovation, they achieved that by essentially rewiring human psychology.
It really did.
Like, Netflix didn't just change how we get TV, they killed the weekly scheduled episode and birthed this whole cultural phenomenon of binge watching.
The transition from weekly appointment viewing to the immediate release of an entire season. That's where this story shifts from a financial breakdown to a psychological revolution.
It totally is.
The researchers found that 80% of people now actively prefer the binge-watching model over traditional weekly releases.
I mean, 80% is a massive cultural consensus.
It really is.
But the study also points out that there's a dual nature to this habit. Like, it's not universally harmful. The data shows very real positive.
Oh, definitely. There's immense emotional satisfaction, deep narrative immersion.
Right, and significant social bonding. Like, when a massive show drops and everyone binges it over the weekend, it creates an instant, shared cultural reference point by Monday morning.
Yeah, it creates a sudden, highly condensed community around the show.
But then there's the other side of it.
Right. The researchers also heavily document the darker side of that consumption.
Yeah.
We're talking about severe sleep deprivation, cognitive impairment from consuming 10 hours of complex narrative without, giving the brain time to process it.
Wow, yeah. I didn't even think about the cognitive processing part.
And then there's social isolation and a documented phenomenon called post-binge regret or binge fatigue.
I think we've all felt that post-binge regret. You finish a 10-hour season at 3 a.m. on a Sunday, the screen goes black, and you just feel incredibly empty and exhausted.
It's the worst feeling.
It is,
Yeah.
but here's where it gets really interesting, because the study dug into the mechanics of why we do this. Like, why do we push past the point of enjoyment into physical exhaustion?
Yes.
And the data links binge watching heavily to avoidance coping mechanisms.
What's fascinating here is that the data points to something much deeper than a passive hobby.
Yeah.
Binge watching frequently mimics addiction-like tendencies. People aren't just watching because they have free time.
Right.
They're using the platform as an active emotional crutch. So if an individual is dealing with chronic stress at work, anxiety, or deep-seated loneliness, binge watching provides a highly effective, albeit temporary, escape reality.
So it's an immersive distraction, basically.
Yeah.
But this brings up a massive chicken and egg scenario for me.
How so?
Well, are we choosing to binge because we just love the story so much and we need an escape? Or because the platform's interface has made it actively difficult for our brains to stop?
That is the million-dollar question. Or, well, $82 billion question.
Exactly. Because I look at this like a casino. You walk into a casino, there are no clocks on the wall.
Right. No windows.
No windows to show you the sun is going down. It's just a constant, seamless feed of dopamine designed to make you lose track of time. Isn't that exactly what the streaming interface is doing?
It's like a casino, but honestly, it's actually much more insidious than that.
Really? How?
Well, a casino is a static environment. The slot machine doesn't change its flashing lights based on your heart rate.
Oh, that's a good point.
But the Netflix user interface, the UI, it actively learns your micro behaviors.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the documentary framework we reviewed explores how this UI is deliberately engineered to bypass your conscious decision-making processes.
I want to get into the specific mechanics of that.
Yeah.
Because going from why we watch to how the platform ensures we never stop, that's exactly how they drove churn down to the point where they could afford an $82 billion buyout.
Exactly. The interface is everything.
Let's talk about autoplay. In the era of traditional TV or even DVDs, when an episode ended, the credits rolled, right? And you had to make a physical choice to start the next episode. You had to press a button on a remote.
Right. And the act of pressing the button introduced friction.
Yeah.
It gave your brain a micro moment to ask, do I want to keep going or should I go to sleep?
Right.
Netflix removed that friction entirely. Autoplay starts the next episode in 5 seconds. It mathematically flips the default state.
Right. So stopping becomes an active choice.
Yes. Stopping becomes an active, effortful choice, whereas continuing is the default passive state.
Wow.
And when you combine that frictionless transition with narrative structures that are heavily optimized by creators to end on cliffhangers, your brain's natural stopping mechanisms are just completely overridden.
And it goes way beyond just rolling the next episode, too. The sources detail how the algorithm uses A/B tested, highly personalized thumbnails to get you to click in the first place.
Yes, the thumbnails are a huge part of this.
This part is fascinating to me. Like, if you and I open our accounts and look at the exact same movie, we might see two completely different promotional posters.
Yep.
Like, if the algorithm knows I watch a lot of action movies, it will show me a thumbnail of an explosion or a car chase.
And if it knows you watch romantic comedies, it will show you a thumbnail of two characters looking longingly at each other.
Exactly, for the exact same movie.
The platform is actively customizing the visual artwork to trigger your specific pre-calculated psychological biases.
That's just wild.
It is. And the researchers classify the result of this targeted manipulation as time mismanagement and a total loss of time awareness.
Loss of time awareness.
Yeah. The viewer sits down intending to watch for 45 minutes, and the customized triggers keep them locked in for 5 hours.
Which ties directly back to the business side. By bypassing the brain's stop mechanisms, they ensure massive subscriber retention.
Absolutely.
If you are constantly in the middle of a binge, or if the algorithm is constantly feeding your avoidance coping mechanisms with perfectly tailored thumbnails, you're never going to cancel your subscription.
Never.
The UI is literally the engine of their financial supremacy.
And that engine requires constant fuel, which comes at a cost to the viewer.
Right. The academic study observed viewers in natural settings, and they documented severe eye strain, physical exhaustion, and the very real physiological risks of a prolonged sedentary lifestyle.
It takes a real physical toll.
It does. Which begs the question, based purely on the data we're seeing about this physical and cognitive toll, should a streaming platform have something like break reminders?
Like they do in some video games.
Yeah, exactly. We see video games introducing warnings that you've been playing for too long. Should there be an option to universally disable autoplay that isn't, buried in a labyrinth of settings menus?
Well, the data certainly suggests that reintroducing some form of friction could mitigate the physical toll.
Right.
But historically, these platforms operate on a mandate of engagement at all costs.
Because that's what makes the money.
Exactly. Because locking down human attention is what allowed them to transition from a tech company to a global economic superpower.
Which brings us to the geopolitical fallout of this psychological grip. Because all that subscription money generated by keeping us glued to our screens isn't just staying in Hollywood.
No, not at all.
It has completely reshaped the global economy.
The scale of the capital reallocation is staggering, honestly. The industry reports refer to it as the Netflix effect.
The Netflix effect.
Okay. Over the last decade, Netflix has invested $135 billion directly into content production.
$135 billion. That is the GDP of a small country.
It really is. And the ripple effect of that direct investment has generated an estimated $325 billion for the global economy.
Wow.
And it's created over 425,000 jobs worldwide.
That's incredible.
But the most disruptive element of this is where that capital is actually being deployed.
Right, because the documentary framework notes that over 50% of Netflix's original catalog is now non-English.
Right.
So they aren't just exporting Los Angeles productions to the rest of the world, they're fundamentally transforming local economies.
Exactly.
We're seeing massive billion-dollar production hubs exploding in places like Spain, Mexico, and South Korea.
And there is a very specific mechanical reason for that shift.
Cost.
Cost is a big one. Producing content in South Korea or Spain is often significantly more cost-effective than shooting in Los Angeles.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It diversifies their labor pool. But more importantly, it hyper-targets massive new international subscriber bases.
I see.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this aggressive globalization explains why the Warner Bros. Acquisition is so historically significant.
How so?
Well, Netflix's co-CEO, Ted Sarandos, stated years ago that their mission was to entertain the world.
Right.
Through localization, they've decentralized the entertainment industry away from traditional Hollywood.
And their influence is actively restructuring Washington, too.
Yes, the lobbying.
Yeah, according to the industry research report included in our sources, by 2025, Netflix was outspending the entire Motion Picture Association, the MPA, in federal lobbying.
That's a huge shift.
It is, because the MPA represents the combined legacy power of traditional Hollywood. Regardless of the actual policies they're pushing, I mean, we're not taking sides on whatever laws they're trying to pass,
Yeah.
but just the sheer mechanical fact that a single tech streaming hybrid possesses more lobbying muscle than the combined forces of legacy Hollywood studios. That is a massive changing of the guard.
It is the ultimate consolidation of soft power.
Yeah.
I mean, they control the global distribution pipeline. They drive localized economic production in dozens of countries. They wield the political lobbying power to protect their regulatory interests.
Wow.
And now they own a century of legacy IP through Warner Bros.
So what does this all mean? We've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
We've gone from a booming billion-dollar traditional box office to an $82 billion corporate buyout, to the neurological mechanics of why we can't stop watching auto-playing episodes at 2 a.m., to global economic lobbying.
It's a massive web.
It is. So for the listener, for the person who is just trying to unwind on their couch after a long day, what is the practical takeaway from all of this data?
I'd say the primary takeaway from the academic research is the absolute necessity of mindful consumption and digital hygiene.
Digital hygiene.
Yeah. We have to recognize that these platforms are not passive delivery systems.
Right.
They are engineered systems designed to capture and hold our attention using incredibly sophisticated behavioral psychology.
They're essentially turning our own coping mechanisms against us to lower their churn rate.
Precisely. And the most effective defense against an algorithm optimized by thousands of engineers is active awareness.
Awareness.
The research suggests setting intentional limits, balancing screen time with real-world interaction, and actively questioning whether you are using media for entertainment or using it to avoid reality.
Right. The avoidance coping?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That is how you prevent the post-binge regret and the cognitive exhaustion that the study documented. You basically have to manually reintroduce the friction that the interface so carefully removed.
Turn off autoplay in the settings.
Yes.
Force yourself to pick up the remote and make a choice. It sounds incredibly simple, but when you're up against a system that has mapped your micro-behaviors, it actually requires a significant amount of active effort.
It requires vigilance. And I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over, building on everything we've discussed today regarding the Warner Bros. Acquisition.
Okay, lay it on me.
So we know that Netflix's machine learning algorithm intimately understands our psychology.
Right.
It knows exactly what triggers our avoidance coping mechanisms. It knows exactly which personalized thumbnail will make us click based on our hidden biases.
Yeah, the romance versus action posters.
Exactly. And now, through this $82.7 billion acquisition, that same algorithm owns a century of our most vital legacy IP.
Yeah.
Superman, Harry Potter, The Wizard of Oz.
They own the crown jewels of modern mythology.
Think about the implications of that.
Oh, wow.
If a machine learning algorithm is deciding which versions of our greatest heroes, our darkest villains, and our global stories to feed us, based entirely on what successfully exploits our psychological vulnerabilities to keep us from logging off.
Oh, man.
Who is actually writing our future cultural history? Is it human creators or is it the algorithm?
Wow. That puts the entire merger in a completely different light. The biggest plot twist wasn't in the boardroom after all. It's happening right in our own living rooms every single time we let the countdown timer hit 0 and the next episode starts. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. As always, our goal is to give you the tools to understand the systems operating behind the scenes so you can navigate your world a little more clearly. Take a break, look out a window, and maybe turn off